Today's tutorial is for the Buggy Sling. This is from Fireweed Stitches. This is the first pattern that I've made a tutorial for Fireweed Stitches, but they have several other patterns on their website. This is just the latest pattern they have released. Also, Fireweed Stitches is known for their hardware. It's high quality, it's really durable. I have used their hardware before and it is amazing. I love the way it looks. She's always trying to come out with new types of hardware, and since she is a sewist, also a bag maker, a lot of her hardware goes hand in hand with unique ways to add hardware to bags. She also sells zipper tape, webbing, labels, other things you need for bag making, so definitely check out her website. I sewed one of these slings up last night and I couldn't believe how quick it came together. The hardest part, I promise you, of this pattern is figuring out what materials you want to use. If you choose to use all the same prints, it's not a problem. You just cut everything out and then you just start sewing. But if you're like me and you want to have different prints for different things, that's a little tricky. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to go over the layout, how this bag is going to come together, kind of talk about all my pieces, and that's how we're going to start. After we get that part, really you're going to be like, that sews so quick. The designer and I were talking and she said that she really feels like this will be a great pattern to have at craft shows and to sell and things like that, and I thought, she's so right. This pattern is one that I think I can make for a lot of craft shows because it comes together quick and it's very useful. It's a sling that can be worn on the front or back, of course, but it is not wide, so it is compact, but it still has so much room. You could easily fit water bottles in here, but you're not carrying around a big backpack or anything like that. This pattern comes in two sizes, a mid-size and a large. I'm sewing the mid-size today and it is a great size. I definitely feel like it is perfect to carry all your needs. The large would be a step up, maybe if you're going on a bigger trip or you like to carry more items when you go. Maybe camping would be good for the large, but for me the mid-size is the perfect size. So that's what I'm sewing up in today's version. So now that we've talked a little bit about the pattern and Fireweed Stitches, let's go ahead and start talking about the pattern pieces. The designer does mention that she wrote this more for a cork or a vinyl. As you know, I don't sew with those materials so much in my sewing room, so I am doing mine out of all cotton woven materials. I'm going to tell you the pieces that I did add interfacing on and the pieces that I skipped adding interfacing on. The main area of bulk you're going to have is at the bottom when you box your corners, because we are doing several layers. We're building up this pattern, so we'll have a pocket here, a slip pocket there, and so the addition of those layers will be the main area. You will have some bulk in there at the bottom. If you're choosing to make this bag out of vinyl and cork and you sew on a domestic machine like I do, I would be hesitant to add a lot of interfacing, especially if you're keeping it in the seam allowance, because that bottom boxed out corner will get bulky on yours as well. First things first, I will be making a few changes to the pattern, and not because anything's not written well, just because it works best for me in my sewing room. First thing is the pattern does use double-sided tape. I don't use double-sided tape, so you will see me not using double-sided tape. Just know that throughout the designer gives you the places where to add double-sided tape just to make it a more convenient and easy sew for you. Also, this pattern gives a suggestion of adding magnetic snaps. On my first one, I did not add the magnetic snap just to see how it feels, and I felt like me not adding the magnetic snap did not have any ramifications in the way the pattern looked and how it wore in the end, so I'm skipping the magnetic snap option here as well. As someone who sews for craft shows, getting to skip a magnetic snap saves me time, but it also saves me some money too, because I'm not having to add that extra hardware in the bag. The magnetic snap would be used on the front, and the pattern does give you the directions for where to place it. One other thing I'm changing is the pattern uses a technique at the top zipper, which is kind of like the butler method. I am not doing that just because it's a little tricky for me to get a precise sew with the butler method. I am not that skilled at it. I should spend the time practicing it, but instead I'm just going to use my technique of measuring the area in between where we are going to be putting the zipper, and then making my zipper tape with the turning of the 90-degree angles on one end and a zipper tab on the other. those are the changes that I'm making, and I do apologize if you want to see all those steps. Just sometimes we have to know where our threads are in the sewing room. So let's go over these pieces and let's talk about the interfacing I'm using. The front is definitely your feature focus on this bag. The first piece we're going to look at is this top pocket panel piece. You're going to note that we have these angles cut out here. So on this piece, it's a cotton woven, and I do have it interfaced with Royal Pixie Light. For the bottom of that zipper pocket, we are going to have the bottom front pocket. That is this piece here. I'm going to have a layer of SF101 on this. And just as a side note, this bottom will get boxed corners. So if you wanted to, if you were worried about bulk, you could even leave the interfacing out of this bottom area here if you're worried that it will be difficult for you when you're boxing the corners. So these two pieces will create the front of the zipper pocket. The front pocket lining piece is, of course, the lining piece you will need for that front pocket. I'm not adding anything on this, so it's a very thin cotton woven. I feel like that is completely fine. This piece will be kept out of the seam allowance at the bottom for the boxing of the corners. So if you like a sturdy pocket, you could easily add interfacing here and it wouldn't affect those boxed corners. The next piece we're going to have is another lining piece. This is going to be the slip pocket lining. So you can see that it has these notched edges here, which is going to fit it perfectly with that top zipper pocket piece. This piece, after we create our zipper pocket, is going to be placed right sides together so that we can attach it, and this would be the place where you would want your magnetic snap to go if you are adding one. I again am not adding any interfacing on this piece. This piece will be included in that bottom boxing of the corners, so I definitely didn't want to add any extra bulk here. If you wanted to, you could interface it. If you're worried about bulk, you could leave the interfacing out of that bottom area. This piece is going to be seen from the front. This is going to be where your zipper pocket and your slip pocket are sitting. So you're only going to see kind of this top portion of this piece. I went ahead and interfaced all of this piece. You could easily leave the interfacing off the bottom of this piece if you're concerned with bulk, but I did not feel it was necessary. You definitely want interfacing at the top if you're using a cotton woven or a cotton canvas. This is called my slip pocket back, and this same shape will be used to cut out your lining and your back piece. So in the end, you'll have 4 pieces this shape. So this will be the one we see from the front. I decided to use a panel for the back. The back is kept simple, and I thought, wow, this is a great place for a panel. It will be super cute to have this as a unique feature. So if you are someone like me who likes to use panels, grab out your panels because this sling is perfect for them. This panel is from Jen's Fabric. I always keep my rep code for Jen's Fabric in my description. Since I'm a rep, I have a rep code, which means if you order from Jen's Fabric, you can use that code to save 10%. I get 10% in credit back so that I can order more fabric from Jen's. So this will be the back panel. This is the only thing. We're not adding any pockets to our back, so it's staying simple. What we will have though is these tapered top panel pieces. This is going to be what our connector for the D-ring attaches to. So what is going to hold the top of our strap? We're going to sew these right sides together and have that connector here in the middle. Because this is a wide space, I really wanted to use 1.5 inch webbing because I felt like it really filled out that space nicely, but the pattern does say you can use 1 inch webbing. I think there's even a 1.25 inch webbing if you're kind of torn in between. But I did go ahead and interface both of these pieces since they were cotton woven with the Royal Pixie Light, which is just a SF101 equivalent, because since this is holding my strap, I wanted this to be a little bit more sturdy and have just a little bit more durability to it. After we sew this together, we will attach this to this back piece. The last 2 pieces we have is just our lining pieces. This is cut from that same shape as the back. I am using a cotton woven, but it's a more sturdy feeling cotton woven, so I'm not adding any interfacing on the back of these pieces. Definitely feel free to if you wanted to, but the lining, we're not doing anything to it, so this is a great way to just save a little money on the interfacing because it's just going to be inside and the outside is going to support it pretty well. For the hardware, I'm going to have 2 pieces of zipper tape. I have the pulls already attached just so I don't forget to add them. I do have a zipper tab. I have 2 1.5-inch swivel hooks, a 1.5-inch slider, and 2 1.5-inch D-rings. The pattern does tell you that if you wanted to have a D-ring on the bottom of both sides of your back piece, you could. If you don't know which way someone would want to wear this bag, that would probably be smartest, but I'm just going to add the 1 D-ring and then the other D-ring will be added to the top. That is all the materials that we need. You can see that this pattern is not hard to cut out. You do not need a lot of materials and it's so fun to sew. So let's go ahead and start putting our buggy sling together. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do some prep work. I'm going to attach these D-rings to the webbing. I'm going to slip 1 piece of webbing through the D-ring and then I'm just going to sew across the top. I like to have my D-ring secured at the top just so it doesn't move around too much. So I'm just going to do a row of top stitching directly underneath my D-ring. So I'm going to add one of these D-rings to this top panel piece. I'm going to place it so that the D-ring is going down, centering it and just basting across here. Both of these pieces are the same for me, but if yours is different prints, you will want to check the pattern to see which one you should place this on. I'm going to set this aside for just a minute. I'm going to go ahead and pull out this bottom panel and place the other ring here. The pattern I think says to place it on the front. It's not going to matter too much for me and I'm going to go ahead and do it now so I don't forget it or don't lose it, but I'm going to use the pattern measurements as to where to place this. Now that I have the D-rings both attached, I'm going to pull out these 2 pieces and sew them together to get them taken care of. The pattern designer tells you it is a great idea to draw on the seam allowance for this piece because when you're coming up here you don't know exactly where to pivot, and if you follow that and have those seam allowances drawn on, you'll know exactly where to pivot so you can get really nice sharp corners on this piece. I'm going to follow the instructions by sewing this exactly with that seam allowance, making sure that I pivot exactly where I need to pivot so that I can get a really nice corner on mine. Once you have this sewn together, let's just go ahead and take some of that extra bulk out of the corners here. You can just snip across here, or some people even like to cut a V out of this area. Like to do it this way. Everybody's different with how they like to remove that bulk. Doesn't really matter. I don't see a big difference either way, but we'll just look after we turn this out and see if one looks better for us. I'm not trimming down the webbing. I always like to leave that webbing intact because I want it for a little bit more durability. You could even add a rivet to this strap connector piece just for a little bit more security if you wanted. I don't see any difference at all in cutting out the V or just snipping across the side of it, so I think it's whichever your preference is. So now what you'll want to do is take time to roll up these seams or take it over to your ironing board and press it flat. I'm going to top stitch 1/8 of an inch away just across the areas that I just sewed. The designer tells you there's no need to close up the bottom because we're going to take it and attach it to the back in the next step. I'll probably go ahead and close it just since I'm sewing over here and just have it secured. Pull out this back panel piece and now I'm going to attach this connector to it. The designer tells us that this connector will not meet, it won't go from edge to edge, so it's not supposed to, so you did nothing wrong. If yours doesn't fit, it should not. And if yours is a different print, the designer tells you in the pattern which side you should be looking at and which side should be against the back. Since mine's the same, it doesn't matter. That's typically why I do my connectors always the same like this in a pattern, because it's just easier. I don't have to think about it. I do batch sew a lot, and so anything I can do to make a sew simpler and easier, I'm all about it. My back is already complete. I love this pattern so much. We are going through this pattern so quickly. I swear this is one that I think everybody will love just because of the ease of how it comes together. It's such a fun sew. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start working on this zipper pocket piece. Let's go ahead and grab out the lining for that pocket. This is how the zipper pocket will look. I'll have my zipper pull closing to the left like I typically do. I'm going to go ahead and do my traditional way of doing this where I have my lining piece right sides up. I place the zipper tape on top. So my zipper tape is right side up, the lining is right sides up. When I do it this way, I have to make for sure that pull is going to the right though, because we're going to flip it. It's always confusing, but once you get used to doing it, you don't think about it. Now this step I'm just going to baste in place. This is one of the parts where the designer uses double-sided tape so that you don't have to do this basting step. It would be completely unnecessary and make this an even faster sew if you like to use it. This is how the zipper lining looks with the zipper attached. Grab out that bottom piece, place it right sides down on top so the exterior is right sides together with both your lining and your zipper tape. Make sure you're matching up both of these short edges on the exterior. Now you're going to sew across here with that full seam allowance that the pattern gives you. Now that we have these pieces sewn together, I'm going to flip them so that the zipper tape is away from each of them. I'm going to pull everything nice and flat. Press these, just finger press these seams. Now I'm going to top stitch right underneath the zipper. So on the bottom panel, I will be top stitching, making sure that everything's laying really flat because this is a feature area here and we want to make sure it looks good. This is what we have now. What we're going to do is we're going to take the bottom of this lining and we're going to pull it up to the top of this zipper from the back side. So this is going to be what creates that lining for your pocket. So cute. Such a fun way to do this. So you can see now that this zipper pocket lining piece is not going to be included in the bottom seam at all, which is great. I'm just going to do another basting stitch here just to keep them attached. Now we have a fully functional zipper pocket, but we gotta add the top. Make sure you orientate the top so that these cutout edges are on the top. We are not attaching that section to the zipper. We're attaching the long, flat, straight edge to the zipper. So I take it, I flip it down so that it's right sides together. I make sure that everything is matching up here on the side. We want a really good finish. This time we'll use the full seam allowance and sew all the way across here. If you're like me and you already have your zipper pull on, make sure you move it out of the way while you're sewing to get a really nice stitch. Now we're just going to flip this top piece up, finger press it flat. Make sure that you keep that zipper pocket lining piece down. We are not sewing through it at this step except just here at the seam. The seam is going to be up behind this top piece. We're going to take the time to do a really nice top stitch all across here on this top piece. This is how our pocket looks at this moment. What we're going to do now is grab out that lining piece for the slip pocket that has that same beveled edge and we're going to attach it here. Just as a side note and reminder, if you're adding magnets, make sure you have them added to this piece if you're choosing to do that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this piece and those edges are at the top. I'm going to lay it right sides together with this zipper pocket we just sewed. Your top edges should match up perfectly. And what you're going to do now is you're just going to sew from one side, start here at this cutout, go up, pivot, go all the way across, pivot, go back down and stop. So we're just sewing this kind of top section. We're not sewing down the sides at all. We will use the full seam allowance on this step because this is a full constructive stitch. This isn't a basting stitch. Now that we have these sewn together, let's just go ahead and remove some of that extra bulk here at these top points. Since we saw in the last one that it doesn't matter if you do just a cut across the top or a V, this is easier, so we'll do it this way. We are going to flip these now so that they are wrong sides together. Take the time to poke out these corners. If you need to take it over the iron, if you need to use your poking tool, do that. But you want to just have a really pretty sharp corner. It's beautiful. I'm just rolling these seams on the lining because I don't want to see the lining from the exterior. I want it to be just a really clean finish here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to top stitch the area that we just sewed. I'm not worried about basting down these sides or anything like that. I'm just going to start here at this corner and do a top stitch from this side to the second side, just making sure I'm really careful with doing a good job keeping a nice seam allowance. Look at how beautiful this is. Pull out this top piece. Which way do I want to go? I think I want to go this way. Lay the pocket that we've just been working on top. If you have magnets, this is one part that would be helpful because the magnets would match up perfectly. So match up everything. If you have a little overhang at the bottom, that's okay. You can trim all that up. Use the pattern for exact placement. If you have those magnetic snaps, that's really convenient for you to help match everything up. This is the way mine's going to look. I'm going to now just baste down these parts we haven't sewed. I'm not sewing up any here because I want to leave that pocket open. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start sewing here, go down, across the bottom, back up. This is a basting stitch, so I'm just going to keep it at that basting stitch length. At this point, we have the front and back complete. The linings were already complete. We're already at the point where we're putting everything together. I think I could sew 500 of these. They're just so fun and so cute. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go off camera and cut out all my corners at the bottom. Now that everything's together, trim up any edges and threads on this piece. I'm also going to mark the zipper placements and get my zipper ready. When we come back, we'll go ahead and get those steps and finish this bag. Like I had said in the beginning, my installation of this main zipper is going to be slightly different. I'm not using the Butler method. I'm using the method where I just turn my ends under. After I turned these under, then I made sure that I cut the zipper tape to fit within the measurements given in the pattern. So that is going to ensure that I am keeping with those measurements into where my zipper is placed. I have my zipper pull on. I'm going to add a zipper tab at the end. I cut out the zipper tab, and since I'm using woven and not a raw edge, I'm just doing a little 4-way fold on mine, but you could definitely use a piece of vinyl or cork if you're doing that and just wrap it around and have the raw edges showing. So I'm just slipping on that zipper tab. I'm going to sew across just a top stitch to connect it. I'm going to pull out this exterior front piece. Now typically I attach my zipper first to the lining, but since I made the marks here, I'm going to attach it here first. So I have my marks made. I have my zipper orientated the way I want it to go in the end. So now I can just flip it down and make sure that I'm keeping the zipper within those marks and basting it in place. I'm going to add the lining. When I add the lining, that's when I'll sew the full seam allowance. On the basting step, you probably won't need to move your zipper pull any, but when the next step and you're sewing with the full seam allowance, you will. Now that I have the zipper basted onto the exterior, I'm going to pull out one of my lining pieces and place it right sides down. And the main thing I want to do is make sure that everything matches up along the top and along the sides. I'm going to put a clip here just to keep those pieces orientated together. Come to the other side and do the same. And this time I'm going to sew with the full seam allowance. You can flip it over if you want so you're watching your exterior. I feel like it's going to be a little easier for me on this one since my exterior is white and I can see my other row of stitches. Once I have those two pieces sewn together with the zipper tape sandwiched in between, I'm going to separate them from the zipper tape. Press everything flat, just roll your seams. I'm going to go ahead and add a clip right here on the side. So I'm holding these fabrics together, and so when I top stitch, they'll be laying together. Do the same thing on the other side, just pulling everything to make sure it's a good fit. And now I'm going to top stitch. It's going to be right beneath the zipper. It's going to be on this top piece here. But I'm only going to top stitch from zipper end to zipper tab. So where I have my fold here. I'll start top stitching, then go all the way to the tab and then stop there. I'm not going to the edges or the sides of the material itself. So here is how this part looks. We have the exterior front, we have a lining, everything's connected, looking good. I'm going to go ahead and pull out another lining piece. You can see I have all my corners cut out. If you have yours, make sure your corners are going to the bottom. I'm going to lay this piece on top. So the linings are going to be right sides together. I'm going to match up this free edge of the zipper with the top of this piece, but I really want to be careful to match up along the sides as well. Once I have everything clipped and it all looks good, I'm just going to baste this top of the zipper. I'm going to go ahead and close it so it's over there. I'm just going to baste from one edge of the zipper to the other, and this will kind of attach these pieces. Then I will come in with the exterior, place it right sides together, and sew with the full seam allowance. You should be having a gap here on your edges. Make for sure you have that gap. You will need to keep this zipper out of your seam allowance. Place the back exterior right sides together with the front. Take care to match up everything, sides and the top. So now that I have these clipped, I'm going to sew with that full seam allowance from side to side, so all the materials are attached. You're going from one side of the fabric all the way to the other side. Open everything up again. We're going to do another row of top stitching. On this one, what we're going to do is pull our lining and our back together. So here's our lining and our back. We're going to push this top piece, this piece with our connector up. So we are top stitching underneath it. We are not having any top stitching on that connector piece, just so it can continue to move up and not be obstructed by any stitching. I'm again though just going to top stitch from zipper to zipper, not from edge to edge of the fabric. Take the time to make sure everything is laying flat. Press that seam with your fingers, make sure it feels good, and then start top stitching an 1/8 of an inch away. You can see I'm going right underneath this connector piece. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take the back exterior and the front exterior, and now we're going to clip these together. I'm going to just add some clips at the bottom, but I'm really going to take the time to clip around the zipper. I'm just clipping here to get it out of the way. Pick it up, let it fall. The lining should come together. I'm going to move my zipper, pull a little bit to the middle, and now I really want to do is make sure that these parts match up here. I'm going to match up these seams, definitely. That is my main concern. Even if I have overage at the bottom that I have to trim up, this is more important to me, this seam right here on both sides. The side with the zipper tab will be a little trickier because it's got a little bit more bulk there. So just take your time, go slow, match up those seams first. If you are a newer sewist, you may want to go ahead and just do some basting stitches right there along that seam so that you guarantee that seam stays connected there, that you have it lining up properly. So here's how it looks now. You can see even on my bottom there's a little bit of overhang. I'm not going to trim anything yet because it might shift while I'm sewing, but if I need to, I'll trim it up later. What we're going to do is we're going to leave an opening here. The pattern tells you about how far from the cutout edge you start sewing. So you'll start sewing at this cutout edge and then how far you will go in and then break your stitches. You need to leave an opening here because we will be turning this bag this way. So that is what I'll do first, just so I don't forget to leave that opening. So I'll start sewing here along the bottom using the seam allowance given in the pattern. Definitely back stitch here. Do the same thing on this other side. And then that part is done. Now on the exterior, we're going to sew from one side of the cutout to the other. We are not leaving an opening in the exterior. So now our bottoms are taken care of. All we need to do now is sew down both sides. We'll sew from the exterior all the way to the lining, and then again on the other side. So we're just going to do a straight sew all the way down. Your box corners are not being sewn, just the sides of them. That's going to be left open so that we can make that box of a corner. Now that you have everything sewn, you can go ahead and trim up any edges, any overhang, anything that you need trimmed up. But once you have it all trimmed up, you're going to stick your hand inside. So go through the lining, make sure your pocket is open, go down to the inside of this. Be careful, the slip pocket, your hand may accidentally go in there. But what you need to be able to do is come to this box corner. This box corner is really small, so you're going to have to come inside to open everything up. You can see where I'm just pulling and I'm getting those seams to where they stacked on top of each other. Then I'm going to butterfly the seams. You can feel the bulk here. You can see this side's a little bulky. Since I'm using cotton woven, since I didn't choose to interface some of those pieces, mine's not bad at all. I'm going to butterfly the seams. I'm going to put the clip in place there. Take it to the machine, smash it down. We want to make for sure we have everything laying flat here, because this should be just a straight sew across. You're going to use the seam allowance and just go from one side to the other to box this corner. I always trim up the corners just so that I can see a little bit better if I did actually get a really good straight line here. You can see I did. It looks great. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to box all the corners, trim up any overhang I have, and then I'm going to turn this bag through the opening in the lining. I'll come back and we'll close up this opening in the lining. We'll make our strap and we'll just look at our beautiful bag. I've boxed all the corners. I've turned the bag right sides out. I went ahead before I clipped this lining closed. I took the time to push out the corner here on with the zipper tab. On the other edge, it's not really a big deal, but on the zipper tab, make sure you push it really good. Make sure you take the time to poke out the corners here on these box corners to get them to fit nicely. And now what we're going to do is we're just going to tuck the raw edge of the lining inside the bag. And then I'm going to sew across here just to close everything up, just kind of like a top stitch here. Go ahead and tuck everything inside. I like to put my hands in and really push on both sides to get it to lay the way I want it to, that lining and all the corners. While we're working on the strap, I'm going to go ahead and use my big clips to compress all these seams so it lays nicely. I do this lots of times when I don't feel like going over to the iron. I may have to go to the iron still on some bags, but this does help lots of times. So I'm just rolling the seam. So I'm only seeing the front from the front side, only seeing the back from the back side. I'll probably need to iron that back because that panel just has some wrinkles on it. So I'm going to set this aside. We're going to pull out the strap. I cut my webbing according to the pattern measurements. I have the adjustable bar. I have 2 swivel hooks. I'm just making a really quick, simple strap. The webbing is from the Emporium. I'm not doing anything fancy with this one. So I'm just going to feed the webbing through the adjustable bar and then do a double fold so that the raw edge is hidden. And then I'm going to do a row of stitching here. You can do 2 rows if you want. I'm going to slide on 1 swivel hook. Just let it go to the middle. Then I'll take that other free edge, feed it back through the webbing. Take the other edge of the webbing and make a double fold again. And then just slip that swivel hook in that fold, in the crease of the fold. Once again, I will do a row of stitching. You can add rivets here. You can do 2 rows of stitching. You can sew the square, whichever you prefer as your method. Here is my beautiful Buggy sling. Look how cute that is. I love the colors, so vibrant. I love getting to mix and match prints on the back. I use that beautiful panel. Looks so good. I do need to iron it. There are a few wrinkles. I have a quick strap. I made this bag before I've even had my first cup of coffee. That is how quick, how easy, how fun this pattern is. I highly suggest this pattern. I think it's one that I will use time and time again. I did leave mine kind of a softer bag. It is kind of smushy. If you don't like that look, you could easily use cork or vinyl. You could use cotton woven and canvas and just interface it a little bit heavier than I did. I would be careful about keeping some interfacing out of those bottom seams. But this pattern is so cute, so adorable. This is the first pattern I've sewn from Fireweed Stitches, and I'm a huge fan. Let me know in the comments if you've sewn any of their patterns, or if you look at their website and see another pattern of theirs that you would like me to do another tutorial on. Just let me know. I really enjoyed this. It's a fun sew. It's very practical. This is where that magnetic snap would be. So you can see mine does sit flat, but if you had things in there, it could probably potentially like pull out. So you would have to be mindful of the fact that if that is a concern of yours, use the magnet there. So let's look at the zipper pocket down here. Opens up and could easily fit your phone, a small wallet, gum, whatever you have. But when you get this big opening up here, that's going to fit water bottles. That's going to fit a lot of stuff. A book, anything you use to take whenever you're running errands and things like that. Love this. If you really wanted to, you could even do a little patch slip pocket on the back here. Would be cute as well. Love this pattern. So thankful to the designer, Fireweed Stitches, for allowing me to do this tutorial. I really had a great time sewing this. I've already made 2 of these, and I feel like I'll be making so many more just because of how quickly it comes together, how easy, and how fun it looks in the end. Thank you so much for watching another tutorial of mine. I hope that you enjoyed this one. I hope it motivates you to try up a fun new pattern. I'm going to leave the link for this one in my description. I'm also going to leave the link to her Facebook group in case you would just want to join the Facebook group to see what others are making and how they're doing their versions of this Buggy sling. And definitely, if you make one of these, post it in her Facebook group. I always love to see what everybody makes. Other than that, I hope you have an amazing day. Thanks for watching.